Welcome to the Live Up podcast, where we revisit the movies from our youth to see if they live up. I'm Lily.
And I'm Jess Latterman.
And I'm Amanda Treat. And Lily did that way better than Jess ever does.
She did. You might have just heard my daughter do the intro a bit better than me, but that's okay. It's all about progress. The way this episode will go, we will review, discuss, and score the movie in question to see if it lives up now to us as adults and whether it lives up to kids today. I'm Jess Latterman.
And I'm Amanda Treat. On today's episode, shh, don't move, they'll hear you. Set in the middle of nowhere, a few survivors have to stand very still and be very quiet to escape an invasion of monsters. And I'm not talking about A Quiet Place, it's 1990s Tremors! Jess, you picked this movie.
I did.
Why did you pick it, and what is your history with Tremors?
I watch this movie all the time. I picked it because I thought it would be a fun summer, midsummer, B-movie blockbuster type movie to watch. It's one of those movies that as soon as the first scene happened, I'm like, oh, I know all the words to this. And I think I remember, this is one that I watched a lot from the beginning. Unlike others where I would just come in the middle when it was on TV, I preferred to watch this one from the beginning and watch it all the way through for the build-up. So this is a movie that is close to my heart. I am scared about what you think of it, but what is your history of this movie?
Apparently none. I got 10 minutes into this movie and that's when I realized, oh, this isn't Critters. I thought we were watching Critters.
That's sort of like when I was watching Lost Boys. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's actually Flatliners I've seen, not Lost Boys.
Yeah. No, Critters is very similar. That's from 1986, and it's people in Kansas instead of Nevada, but they're battling aliens, and they both have this, like, gory, dusty puppet show vibe, so...
Dusty puppet show?
Yeah. This was my first viewing of Tremors. It is very similar to Critters.
Yeah, I've never seen Critters.
Since I am a first-time viewer, Jess, would you like to give a synopsis of the movie Tremors for our listeners?
Yeah, sure thing. Just like you and my kids who haven't seen it before. So I went straight with this one. I wasn't too cutesy with it. So Tremors, it features stealth monsters, as we've been talking about. So stealth monsters who travel underground, have never before been seen by anyone, and decide to go on a bender of human flesh. And man, do they need a whole lot of human flesh to be satiated. I mean, they are hungry all the time. And I guess they have to feed all those like really gross snakes that pop out of their mouth. That's key to the plot. And they get the dwindling town of Perfection, Nevada down probably to single digits. Basically before a ragtag team of handymen and preppers take the monsters out. So that is the plot.
Cool. So, because after I realized I hadn't seen this movie, I started Googling the heck out of it just to try to figure out, like, what is this? Where did this come from? And found out that, so the writers, we got S.S. Wilson and Brent Maddock, they were actually working for the U.S. Navy as, like, educational safety video creators.
Oh, really?
Which... Yeah, so the screenwriters started as educational safety video writers, which is odd. But I think they worked on the movie Short Circuit right before this. Okay. So this wasn't their first movie. This was the first movie for the director. His name's Ron Underwood. He actually came from nature documentaries, which is why some of the, like, Jaws style shots of the, you know, you're just following the monster's point of view as, like, you're staring at people's ankles and stuff like that. I think that's where, I mean, obviously the Jaws influence, but he's a nature documentarian. And then he went from this to direct City Slickers.
Get out of here.
Like, what? Like, who is...
Lots of dusty environments for like this guy.
You're making these $1 million movies with someone who's got, like, a very different career experience leading up to that moment. Like, who is greenlighting that? Like, yeah, that's cool. Oh, he's a nature documentary guy? Yeah, Tremors?
Sure.
Great.
It sort of has animals in it. Like, let's just do it.
I don't know. It's like a meteoric rise of people. I got nothing. I don't know. It was a wild time in the 90s.
But I think it kind of works, the Jaws thing. I actually liked the low perspective of the monster camera work. I felt like it's a good cheat when you don't have CGI and all that stuff. It helps set the mood. And I have to say, watching with, you know, my son, like, you know, then they get it quicker.
The original title of this was called Land Sharks, but then they realized Saturday Night Live had that Land Sharks skit, and they weren't allowed to do that. And then I found another copy of the script, like the original script, and it's called Beneath Perfection, which I thought was a very funny title.
Oh, that is a funny title.
It is both the town of perfection and there's things coming up from underneath.
Yeah.
But also, if you're not quite good enough, you're beneath perfection. And I thought,
is this telling
good
you
pun.
something, telling me how you feel about the movie?
Well, it's a B movie, honestly. Like, and right from the beginning, it flashes on the screen. No Frills Production Company. You know, like they know what they're making.
Yeah, they do. They do. I don't even remember this being released in theaters. I assume it was, but I don't know.
Yeah, they released it in January, like that.
Oh, so it was like
when
we
they
don't
like
care about
shove
this
all
movie.
those movies
Yeah.
to the beginning of the year. It did very poorly at the box office.
So
like
funny.
you used the word summer blockbuster earlier,
I did.
and it was this was a winter bomb.
Yeah.
But has since become popular because people were watching it on VHS cassettes or watching it play in a loop on cable television.
Yeah. Well, as I was saying before, I appreciated the camera work, I guess, of this nature documentary. And there were so many different ways that they portrayed people getting eaten that I actually thought it was somewhat clever. It wasn't just monster comes out and grabs victim. Like, it was all the ways. Like, someone dies of thirst. Somebody gets dragged underground and there's just their face. An entire Volkswagen station wagon gets pulled into the earth. And you have the traditional monster comes out and grab. So I actually thought that was kind of fun. Like, all the different variety of ways that people die.
You like variety of blood and murder.
Yeah. And, even my son who's 7, was like, my favorite way that somebody died. And he was noticing the variety. Because he was kind of almost creeped out and scared there's one scene at the beginning when they're just sort of setting this all up. One of the farmers, it's like an old man farmer. You see he has a bunch of sheep. And then he's looking around, He hears, the sheep start freaking out. So, they sense something, and then he just gets sucked into the ground. And then later, when the main characters, Earl and Valentine, I guess, Kevin Bacon character, they see that there's something wrong at the farm with all the sheep being dead, and they lift up the cowboy hat, and it's just the guy's face in the ground, and clearly
Which was like a Halloween mask, but again, this is a B movie, so we'll allow it. Not the best prosthetics work.
Maybe not,
Fine.
But it was kind of effective. It kind of scared Isaac a little bit. And then later, I guess that's how he processed it. He's like, that was my favorite way that somebody died. And I'm like, oh okay. Nice. Interesting. I don't know if I should be concerned that you have a favorite way.
Aesthetically pleasing.
So much.
I do have in my notes right around that section, the guys who were doing the construction work on the road, and one of them jackhammers the worm underneath.
Yeah.
I just have a fun blood effect.
Yeah.
Good splatter on that.
Good splatter. Surprising splatter.
It went everywhere. It was disgusting.
It was disgusting. And so for folks who don't remember, it's like there's people working on the road. There's someone jackhammering. They jackhammer into one of the creatures and there's blood everywhere. And then eventually the jackhammer gets pulled away by the monster and both of the construction guys get eaten. But it's sort of part of the plot because basically all the commotion of that blocks the main road out of town. So they're really trapped.
So with the version of the script that I was reading through, this Beneath Perfection, they have this whole opening scene that got cut from this movie. Yeah. And I was reading, there are reasons it was cut, but it was more traditional that you want the first 5 minutes of the movie to have something crazy to set the stakes. And it was showing that guy Edgar Deems losing his goat and then running for his life and climbing up the power line.
The guy who dies of thirst.
Yeah, but then let's establish him. Let's establish his goat. Sure. Let's establish the relationship with his neighbor. Let's he really likes this goat. Oh no, the goat's missing. It just...
Yeah, it's boring. And
we need that actress who played Lex in Jurassic Park who's in this just to be like, the goat's gone. Just go from there.
That's true. It wasn't that many years later. I know we're going to get into this with the characters, but if folks don't remember how it starts, it basically starts with Earl and Valentine waking up in their dusty pickup truck and they start kidding around and argue who's going to make breakfast. They argue about their schedule and it's kind of a funny banter, which I think is a much better way. And then you kind of slowly reveal all the crap that's going on. And when they do find that guy, Edgar, it's like, hey, what's Edgar doing up on the tower? He's drunk. I have to get him down. So it adds actually, I think, a good tension. I might be overthinking it. But even, I'm watching it through my kids' eyes who haven't seen it. They were like, what's going on? Why is he not... they didn't realize the guy was dead.
So you saw me make a face at, that was your interpretation of the beginning. Watching this for the first time, I thought it was a little slow.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because you're getting to know, okay, Val, and you've got Earl, and okay, they're hired hands for the ranchers. So I just thought the beginning was a little bit too much establishment of what's going on.
Okay.
Like, I really wish they'd just kind of thrown us into something with more stakes rather than here's the town of perfection and here is every single resident that we're going to introduce by name. I have so many names that I've written down here who just get like killed off a minute later, and it's
You're like, what's the point of that guy?
like, did I need to know about Dr. Jim, and then do I need to know about Fred and his face mask that doesn't look like a head when they pull that off? And like, I've got way too many names on here, and it's like, let's just focus. We got Val, we got Earl, we got Rhonda.
Yeah.
We got a couple other people who are going to help them, but like, we don't need a big backstory on everyone you're about to kill.
True. It's interesting that you thought it started slow, because as a kid, to me, it was like a fun, slow build. And now as an adult, it feels like it moves fast, actually. But I know what happens.
For me, there wasn't any sense of anticipation from that beginning, because it wasn't clear what they were about to do.
True.
So it was just watching two guys work, which...
But they're funny.
Also was possibly overthinking it, but, you know, they really dislike what they do for a living. They're trying to get out of this town, and in some ways they're establishing that this town of perfection is boring to them.
Yeah.
That was my take from the beginning of this. Like, two guys doing stuff they don't like in a boring town.
Oh my god, that's totally not my
a
take
while.
on it. I mean, I think
Yeah.
maybe it does take longer than I remember. I mean, as an adult, and folks, if you've watched this a lot as a kid, I think you'll watch it and maybe be more on my side that it moves quickly, because you know what happens. It was enough time for my kids to figure out how the whole plot's going to go. And they even figured out, so just the method of the monsters ahead of time. I probably let them watch too much of this show called Wildcrats, and they learn about all these different animals. I mean, Lily's too old for that now, but my son, who's 7, was like, oh, well, clearly it's the vibrations. The monsters could feel the vibrations, and so they need to stop driving and they need to stop walking. And this is like well before the characters in the movie figured out, and I have to say probably well before I did when I was a kid. but I guess it was slow enough that even a 7-year-old who watches a lot of Wildcrats could figure out the plot.
Well, they do focus on the vibrations they've got this character Rhonda, and we'll go into all the characters in just a moment, but Rhonda is training to be a seismologist, and she's focused on the vibrations that the creatures are making. And meanwhile, the creatures are focused on the vibrations that all these people and cows and sheep. And so everybody's studying each other.
I know, that's true. Everybody is.
Let's talk about our... it's not a buddy cop movie. It's a buddy septic repair movie.
Yeah, so Valentine is Kevin Bacon. And you have Earl as Fred Ward. Who has he been on our podcast before? Has Fred Ward? I feel like
We have not had any Kevin Bacon on this podcast.
We haven't,
I
which
can't
is weird.
believe we've made it 33 episodes with no Kevin Bacon.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But here he is. And my kids have no idea who Kevin Bacon is. And so they're watching the credits go on and they're like, Kevin Bacon? Yum, yum, yum. Like, they just have no...
They didn't watch the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special?
I guess they did not. No.
Oh, they'd like that. But, I mean, it's out of season right now.
Yeah, they haven't been, like, big Marvel kids.
Okay.
My son likes Spider-Man.
You don't really need a lot of context for that. You just need to know that the Guardians have decided that they need to kidnap Kevin Bacon for Christmas.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, no. So they have no idea who he is.
They're going to Earth to kidnap Kevin Bacon.
But I digress with my distraction of Kevin Bacon. But yes, it is, you're right. It's like a buddy kind of movie. And you have Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward as the handymen, as we were just saying, that aren't happy in their lot in life. But I think it's in a funny way. Like, they're just totally hapless. Their goals are small and they're hapless. The Earl character, the Fred Ward character, it's like admonishing Valentine all the time, like, you never think ahead, da-da-da-da, see, today's Monday, and I'm already thinking about Wednesday. Is it Wednesday?
Yeah, you get a real blind leading the blind vibe from them. Like, there isn't a smart one and a dumb one. They're both dumb.
They are both dumb.
This is not Pinky in the Brain. This is Pinky and Pinky.
I mean, I guess as a kid, I really liked Kevin Bacon's character. You know, he's like the younger one. He's sort of the wild one. He's like, I'm going to run. I want to be a hero, kind of, sort of. Whereas, like, I kind of like Earl now as an adult. He's just like, you young idiot.
Yeah.
I could tell you don't like them that much, but I thought they had good chemistry.
I have no problem with them. You don't see a pairing like them very often because they're so similar in a way that like, and at a certain point it was like, oh, I feel like Earl's the main character of this movie, and then it kind of flips and it's like, no, I guess Val's the main character.
Yeah.
They're so inseparable that, not that one needs to be the main character or the other, but they're so alike, and I guess maybe that's more realistic to how people are in life. You know, people who are like buddy and they're a pair of idiots, and like that's what we're dealing with here.
There's something funny about them. So they're kind of a pair of idiots. They basically like, we have to do better than this, and then they hard cut to a shot of them cleaning out a septic tank. So it's kind of funny. And then, you know, they're drinking beer out of like a toilet bowl cooler.
Yeah, I did like that. That was a charming detail.
My son thought it was hilarious. But then what's funny, I guess, is that really they become the leaders of this ragtag thing. And so they're the ones that kind of come up with the scrappy ideas for how to get out of all the sticky situations they're in. And it's the townspeople who aren't taking it as seriously, and they're just like, guys, this is fucked up. There's like snake monsters with snakes coming out of their mouth out to get us. Like, we have to focus. So there's something funny about them becoming kind of the grown-ups, if you will.
I'm
really trying to sell it to Amanda. I'm really trying to sell it to you.
There's not a lot of growth with these characters.
No.
They do save the day, but like they don't seem any smarter at the end. It is a little bit Dumb and Dumber.
It is a little Dumb and Dumber, and there's no depth that I found as an adult. That it's exactly the same as I remember as a kid.
Yeah, no, and we all know people like this, so that's a realistic portrayal. Yeah, there's nothing bad. It just, you know, it's like a pair of guys just
they argue over like guy stuff, like who's gonna have the bigger gun when they have a plan at some point that they're gonna ride horses out to the next big town because the road is cut off. They argue about who's going to drive the tractor trailer at the end. I also found it funny that after everything and they save the day, Earl's big thing is like, hey, I think we can get into People magazine. That's his big step up. Like, we've made it. We're in People magazine. It's not enough stakes for you, Amanda. I can tell.
Yeah, I'm neutral on them. They're fine as our heroes, but it is a bit of Dumb and Dumber, as I said.
It is.
So.
I still found it charming, but it is. And my kids found it charming for the most part.
So pretty early on, they come across Rhonda LeBecq, who is she a grad student? She's still in school, but she's studying to be a seismologist. She's not like your typical dumb B-movie. She's not screaming for help.
And they kind of set up at the beginning that the Kevin Bacon character always goes for like dumb buxom blondes, and now here they came across a scientist and there's some chemistry there. And Earl is trying to get the Kevin Bacon character to sort of, hey, this one's much better than the dumb blondes you date. In some ways it's like, okay, we're trying to improve here. We're not going after just looks. We're going after brains. And she holds her own in a way, and they kind of look to her for leadership.
Well, I read this description, or it was like a trivia thing about this character. They were saying there's so many monster movies where a random scientist just happens to be there, and that the scientist explains to everyone what's going on, and they deliberately wanted her to be the opposite of that. So there's a lot of moments where they keep turning to her, where do you think these came from? And she just says, I don't know. Why are you asking me? I get it now that I've read the trivia that that's what the purpose of her character was, the scientist who doesn't automatically know everything from the get-go. I think that was a little too subtle. It just came across as more odd than funny.
Yeah.
Because I did notice they kept asking her for information. She was just like, I'm a seismologist. Why would I know this?
Right.
It's a funny idea. I think they could have made that more obvious, maybe. Like, it's a little too subtle to be really funny what they're doing with that.
She wasn't super memorable. Even when we started watching it again, I was like, oh yeah, the female lead. I forgot about it. So, but she wasn't bad. I think she was okay. I mean, there's probably better actresses out there that could have made this something with the script.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that she wasn't a damsel in distress. She was really part of it and kind of one of the leaders.
I found her, and this is the way she's written, not the actress and what she's bringing in. Like, she's very athletic in some scenes.
Yeah,
like
she's
doing
pole vaulting.
Pole vaulting thing. And then they get into the grocery store and she is suddenly terrible and like can't climb up a shelf.
Yeah.
And falls out a window. And I don't know. They're arranging it to be moments of she needs Val to help her, and that sort of
right.
We're going back into the B movie damsel in distress.
But she doesn't.
There,
Val doesn't help her. She still finds a way out of that situation, though.
He gets her out of her pants that one time when she's got
that is true.
The razor wire all around her ankles and stuff. Yeah. And then like tenderly patches her up as she's sitting there in her underwear. She's not your stereotypical character. I think you're right that she is a little, not forgettable, but yeah, she's a little forgettable. Doing anything too wild in here.
And just to remind folks, I mean, she's the one that does figure out that they live underground, that they're clearly sensing the vibrations. She's also the one that figures out that there's 4 of them or 5 of them at that point. Yeah, she does cool stuff. She pole vaults from rock to rock to get out of there. I mean, she doesn't have memorable lines.
No. I do have a note in my book here that says, Rhonda, put a bra on.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
I noticed, because she's running around, and I was just like, lady, you're a scientist. You know what gravity does.
She sort of fades in the background as the movie goes on. Like, as it hits its peak, I think other characters kind of take over some of the leadership, if you will.
She's not bringing any skills to the final battle that they need.
Right.
You know, they don't need a seismologist. They need these random preppers with their...
Oh my god. The random preppers.
Their dungeon of chemicals in their basement.
Should we talk about the preppers?
Sure. This is Bert and Heather Gummer. They are played by Michael Gross, who I didn't even recognize.
Oh, I knew he was in this. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, so he's the dad from Family Ties who's like super liberal. And does he work for like NPR or like public television on that show?
He's kind of a former hippie on that show.
Total hippie on that show. So, and had like kind of long hair and the beard and everything. I didn't recognize him at all until after the fact. I was like, oh my god, Family Ties. And then his wife, Heather Gummer, is played by Reba McEntire, her first movie.
I had no idea she was in this. I do not remember that was her.
She's a little too comfy in this role. Like she's
with the guns and the... Yeah,
she's very good at it.
Fits like a glove a little bit.
I'm like, Reba, what do you have in your basement?
I know, right? I mean, I think it's really funny that even back in... When was this? 1990?
Yeah.
That even back in 1990, people thought preppers were weird. I mean, the whole town kind of like... They like them, but they also make fun of them.
Yeah. No, it's... We tolerate you because you live here and there's only 14 people in this town, but...
And you have a lot of
You're
guns.
the weirdos.
Yeah. They have so much firepower, and there is one kind of, I think, kind of a cool scene. One of the monsters invades their basement and they just pump it full of lead, and eventually it dies. And so they get kind of like a macho victory of like, yay,
with enough guns, go America.
Yeah, and they're trying to be very military about it. What I thought was kind of funny that I didn't pick up as a kid is that, you know, the Family Ties guy is like, we're ready. We've been ready for this. This is what they're like true preppers.
Well, because we don't get like a whole Architectural Digest tour of their compound. We just see the basement.
Can you imagine?
But even when they're up on the roof, they've got the solar hot water panels. Like you can imagine, they are very self-sufficient in there. They're probably collecting rainwater. They've probably got enough food to last in that basement for years.
Yeah.
And they seem sad to abandon the compound at the end when they have to flee for their lives. They've been waiting their whole lives for these things to attack their little town.
And even the guy laments, I've been ready for this, I've been ready for that, but I wasn't ready for monsters that come underground. He's like almost upset at himself that he did not anticipate this as a threat.
Yeah. Because honestly... He could have put a lot more rebar into the concrete of that floor and we wouldn't have had this problem.
I know.
If only he'd thought of that. He has a line at one point. They're asking why these two happen to have a bunch of pipe bombs at their disposal. And he just says, household chemicals in the right proportions.
I know.
And it just screamed into my head because we're talking about preppers who don't have access to the internet.
Right. They really
are
need to know.
Learning all of this somewhere.
I know.
Where do you go to learn how to make pipe bombs out of household chemicals back in 1990 without the internet?
Yeah, and you kind of see them, like they start sawing off the tubing of some stuff in their house to make the pipe bombs. I mean, they are so not phased. Like they basically kill one of the monsters and immediately get to work preparing and getting all this crap together. I mean, it's somewhat terrifying, and you're totally like, Reba McEntire's kind of like, she's in it. I mean, she's just like...
Yeah. She just seems like Reba McEntire in this movie.
I guess she does.
I didn't realize how like steady she is in the role of a prepper.
She probably has like a nuclear fallout in her basement and all that stuff.
So yeah, we like the Gummer. I mean, I don't want them as neighbors, but
no.
they're fine in this movie.
Yeah. They wouldn't be your neighbors. Like, they moved out to Perfection, Nevada to be alone.
I mean, we're on there's so much rock under the ground here. It would take a lot for those monsters to get up through any of our basements.
Yeah, I gotta live somewhere dusty.
Yeah. I do not have rebar in the floor of my basement, to my knowledge. There's a bunch of other characters in this movie. I only want to call out a few of them, even though so many of them are given such a full introduction. And it's just,
it really bothers you. It's so funny.
Well, it felt like if you're coming from writing, not that they're doing corporate scripts, but if you're doing like safety training videos, you know how you have to watch those for work periodically,
oh my God,
and they
worst.
play out a situation, and it's, hello, Jess. How are you today? Hi, Amanda. Are you eating lunch at 12 o'clock? That they introduce everyone's name in the first sentence. Like, they're doing that here. And that's what's bugging me is, like, people don't talk like that. Like, hi, Fred. Are you working on the road today? Oh, that's nice.
Oh, that's funny.
It does have a little bit of a... So that aside, we're going to skip right over Fred because he doesn't live very long. And Dr. Jim and his wife, they don't live very long.
So I thought Dr. Jim and his wife had the coolest death. Well, his wife really had death by being trapped in the station wagon that gets sucked underground. And I kind of like how you see both headlights and then you see one headlight and no headlights. So didn't get to know you that well, Doctor and your wife, but you had a cool death. I sound like a psychopath.
Well, she might still be in the car. Do we know if they have navigated? Because if she's pulled underground in a car, seemingly the sand is going to collapse around that. Can they pull off a door handle? Are they underground bears and they can rip a door handle?
I feel like they're sort of presented in the story as getting smarter as it goes on. So I would think that they were able to pry it open and...
I'm just saying, she might be down there still and nobody's checked.
I know, they've...
Still listening to the country music.
I kind of thought it was funny is that Val and Earl just dust off. They hear the music and they dust something off and they see the headlight on and they find the license plate and then they look at each other and then the next is just a hard cut of them just hightailing it the hell out of there because they were not going to
They did not attempt to knock on the windshield and make sure she's still...
No, they were out of there.
Is she in there? Skipping over all these dead people, we've got a mother-daughter in this town, and I only want to call out the daughter, Mindy, who's played by Ariana Richards, because I was like, hey, it's Lex from Jurassic Park.
I didn't even catch that. That's funny.
Oh, I mean, she looks exactly the same. Jurassic Park came out, 2 years?
Just a few...
No,
3 years later, 93.
So I just want these two movies to be in the same universe, where she has grown up in a small town. She survives these Tremors monsters... And then her grandpa flies her down to Costa Rica and she gets attacked by a velociraptor in the kitchen. This kid.
This kid is in therapy.
Her therapy sessions are long.
Yeah, she doesn't trust anybody. This kid is probably a prepper.
She is, she's afraid of the ground. She's afraid of reptile hands.
She's
coming
never
through
going on a hike.
Doorknobs. Oh my God, poor Lex. So she doesn't do a whole lot. She's there to be the cute kid, but there is just the funny gag where she's really into
the pogo stick.
Pogo sticking, which was a thing in the 90s. We used to do that in gym class.
I don't even think my kids know what that is.
I remember the fall off a pogo stick. You could get going, but that thing could come out from underneath you, and the way you hit the floor in the gym class was the most excruciating kind of fall you could take as a kid.
Yeah.
Kids are resilient and practically bounce, but falling off a pogo stick, pain.
Yeah.
So there's the gag where they're trying to get up on the roof. She's pogo sticking down the middle of the street. And for some reason, Val thinks it's a better idea to just tackle her off of that thing. And it's you just made so much noise and created so many vibrations by tackling her rather than come on, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I liked that gag as a kid because as a kid, you're oh shit, because at that point in the movie you understand that it's vibrations and you see the pogo stick and you're oh shit. So I didn't mind it. There are certain things in this B movie that I forgive, and that's one of them.
It would have been cool to have a shot, though, of the snake worm thing comes out at her and she just pogo sticks that thing through the head. A pogo stick is a violent weapon.
That's true. She could just knock it
going
unconscious. Who needs all the prepper guns?
Yeah, impale it through the head.
Yeah.
That would have been
a good death.
So, hey Lex. Sorry for your next trip. It's going to go much better next time.
Much better.
I love in Jurassic Park just that part where she's like, "Where's the goat? The goat's gone."
Oh yeah,
like she could have been doing that all over this town. Where's the goat?
Where are the sheep?
Goat's gone. Where's the horse? The horse is gone. All right, other kid actor in this. There's a kid named Melvin who everybody hates, played by Bobby Jacoby. My notes just say this is not the brother from the Wonder Years.
He does kind of have his resemblance.
He looks like him, and he's acting like him. But it's
classic little asshole. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, I found his level of annoying. Like, I wouldn't have minded seeing him get eaten.
I mean, it's okay because you're the adults are annoyed by him, and they are like, "Stop it! Stop it, you little asshole!" There's at some point Melvin like makes a joke as if he's being eaten by one of the snakes, and one of the preppers like pulls a gun out and then says to Melvin, "You were so close. Like I would have shot you, basically." Yeah. So you're supposed to hate him. You're supposed to think he's annoying. Honestly, if he had gotten eaten, I would have been fine with it. It would have been fine.
Yeah, I mean, they kill so many people in this movie. Like, what's one more?
They're clearly very hungry
It
monsters.
It would have been satisfying to the adults who are like, I hate kids like that. Oh,
yeah, he's a real jerk.
The other character I want to call out, the town general store is owned by Victor Chang, who's played by Walter Wong. And the second I saw him come on screen, I was like, oh, please don't be a movie that, like, kills off the one minority character.
Well, they did. They killed him off.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had a pretty dramatic
They were
death.
trying to get Pat Morita to play this role, and he passed. Well, and, like, he'd already had an Oscar nomination from The Karate Kid. It's like,
but then he did...
Why would
after
you want
doing Babes
Pat
in Toyland,
Morita?
he was like, I'm not doing one of these again.
Yeah. I've got that Babes in Toyland credentials now. I don't need this Tremors. But yeah, I don't want to see Pat Morita get, like, sucked into the floor of the general store and eaten.
So he was a death that I was a little sad about because he's kind of funny. Like, you kind of like him. He's the one he bought. One of the snake tongue things get caught in one of the cars. He basically buys it off of Val and Earl for however much money, and then he's selling Polaroids of people being scared by the snake. That very much dates the movie. I pretty much had to explain to the kids, hey, this is before cell phones. So, but anyway. So he's kind of this helper character. He's kind of funny. He and Melvin go through a back and forth funny brainstorm about what should we call the creatures. And they're basically not taking it seriously. And everybody else is like, we have to get out of this town. I thought that their brainstorm about the name is funny and how they're just not taking it seriously. So you're kind of sad about his death. And they made his death more dramatic. It's like the first one that, you actually see the full creature come out of the ground. And it's pretty brutal. He's basically in the mouth of the creature and gets like thrown around the store. And everyone's trying to help him up. And you hear him basically scream as he gets sucked underground. It's bad.
Yeah. I wish they'd given him a little more dignity in death, maybe. But also, yeah, I just... As soon as he was on screen, it was just like, there's nobody in this town. They're immediately going to kill this guy. Like, I just got that line from... There's that Community Halloween episode where they're trying to run from zombies, and one of the characters pushes Donald Glover out the window to escape, and is like... Be the first black guy to live. There's some line in there like that. And that popped into my head. I was like, oh, I bet you're not the first Asian to live.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the nemesis of all of our characters here are these creatures that I saw them being called graboids.
Well, that was part of the brainstorm that Melvin and Walter had.
Oh, they did say it was a graboid?
Well, they were just trying to brainstorm names. Because they're like, we discovered it, we should get to name it. As Val and Earl are trying to come up with a plan to get out of there, the shopkeeper is like, graboids, let's call them graboids. And then Melvin's like, graboids.
Because that shows up in, like, the credits. And
oh, is it? Oh, that's funny. Which is like a very B-movie name.
So, yeah, no explanation from where they came from. I'm okay with that. And they hypothesize, like, it's a science experiment gone wrong. It's an alien invasion.
Right.
Like,
it predates the fossil
you don't
record,
really need
whatever
to know.
that means.
Yeah. It's scarier to not know what the heck they are. Yeah. They kill the ones they know about, and everyone seems pretty comfortable that they're gone.
I know. Everyone's like, and we're done!
Yeah, I was just like, these came out of nowhere. Are you sure you got them all?
Right. Probably not. This is why they made sequels.
There's 4 sequels
Are
to
there
this
really
movie.
4 sequels?
Yeah. One of them, like, just came out, like, a year or two ago, too. They're on an island now.
Is Kevin Bacon in all of them?
No, I don't think he's in any of them.
Oh, okay.
That was something I saw, that he felt like this was the low moment of his career,
really?
and like everything was going wrong for him, and he was just like, I can't believe I'm in a movie about sandworms. And
but this was kind of a cult
then,
hit. I mean, I'd say a lot of people, maybe not you, but a lot of people our age, this might be the first film they saw him in. This is what they know him from.
Yeah.
This and like
Footloose.
Footloose, yeah.
Footloose.
I actually have never seen Footloose.
I've seen Footloose on ice, not with Kevin Bacon,
Oh God,
but with Nancy Kerrigan.
Oh my God, have you really? That's really weird.
Yeah, it was awesomely bad.
But this is kind of a cult hit. Right?
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. I think Kevin Bacon came around on this too. That he gets such fan enthusiasm about his participation in Tremors, so
yeah.
he's down with it now. So we're talking about the Graboids.
Yes,
and their 4 sequels. I hadn't seen this before, so initially you just see the worms, and they look like hand puppets. They are hand puppets.
Are they really? I actually was very curious about
the worm part of it is.
Okay.
Yeah, if they do like a wider shot and show more of it, then they're doing, again, it's puppets essentially, but they were doing it as almost like a marionette, like there's cables involved, and that's how they're moving it. I went in deep on the special effects on this, as you probably knew I would.
Yeah, I'm excited.
There's a couple of shots where you see like the full body of the creature, and they're doing that with miniatures. It's not terrible the way they look.
I actually think it's still pretty effective.
I made a note. So those like hand puppet worm things that come out of the mouth are like so phallic looking, but then when you see the whole thing, it actually looks like a giant vagina that's shooting penises. Just like, that's a look. It's both phallic and vaginal.
Yeah.
Okay, Tremors.
It's just so uniquely weird looking that it's...
Yeah.
I think it's still effective.
So the creatures, or graboids, we'll call them graboids. The initial pass they did on, they weren't slimy because they're coming out of the dirt.
Yeah.
Desert sand. How are they slimy? But then something about the paint on them was like too shiny.
Oh.
And they were just like, just cover them in ooze. So
just make
now
it oozy.
You have smelly, oozy looking slimy things.
Yeah.
They're practical effects, so they built a lot of these things. They're probably like in a warehouse somewhere. Like
they've probably like
between
toured
movies.
them around in some sort of convention at some point.
Like, the graboids are gonna come to the convention center. If you want your picture with one,
I get my picture with one. I actually thought it was still effective. I was curious what you thought about it because I thought, okay, they're pretty big. They kind of complex, getting like the phallic worms out of the vagina, I guess.
Yep. Somebody's arm is shooting out of a mouth to...
Yeah.
Because you're looking at a real thing, like,
but
it's grabbing someone's ankle. But it did look like puppets to me.
Really?
Especially, or just the worm things looked puppety to me. I mean, they didn't have computer effects, so there's no AI. They're just going for it. Like, give me a puppet that shoots a penis out of a vagina. And have it bite people and blood everywhere. Yeah. Make it slimy, and then we'll have everyone say, "Ooh, this smells."
But I didn't think it was like something that I'm like, "Oh, I'm not afraid of this because it looks like a puppet." I think like actually it looked like a monster to me.
I was thinking, I just watched the Jim Henson documentary on Disney, and it's noticeably not a Henson creature.
Right.
But the first time I got the full view of it, I was just like, oh man, like Jim Henson would have crushed this
You
thing
think?
if he got to design it.
It would be more creepy though. I mean, this movie...
Oh, it absolutely, but I think it would have been cooler. I was thinking about some of the puppets they use in the Dark Crystal.
Yeah.
And how like creepy and gross and
terrifying
scary some of those are.
They live rent free in my head, the whatever they're called.
Skeksis?
Not the Skeksis, the army kind of. Is that the Skeksis?
Those big things that come and round up all the...
what was that? Something with a G.
What are they called? The pods, the podlings, the potato creatures.
The garum? The garum?
The puppets that look like potatoes.
The puppets.
Oh yeah, garum.
Garum. Something like that. They're terrifying.
We're a year out of that episode.
I know.
I have lost all the...
But I think
Dark
I
Crystal
totally agree with you that Jim Henson would have made this creepier, but I think this was a B movie for fun. So I think if you add more sinister elements...
No, it looks like a B movie
it would have been
puppet.
Totally different. Maybe it would have been better, maybe it would have been good, but I don't think it would have been as light and frothy.
Light and frothy? Oof. It's a nice coffee order, folks. One cool thing, we talked about how they're doing the Jaws camera work where you're seeing the monster's point of view as it's sneaking up on people. And that's always a cool effect. But they have a bunch of shots where you see something rippling under the sand, or at the general store you see the ripple under the floorboards. And they did that by taking a boat buoy and burying it to a line that's attached to like a truck somewhere, and then just driving really fast and yanking it through so it does ripple like that. I thought that was a clever solution.
That is.
Very low budget and it's very effective.
Yeah, because you could see, I mean, there's the fun thing where like Val and Earl at some point are standing on the ground and like all of a sudden they're lifted in the air and you get a sense of how big they are. But then there's other fun little things like you're describing, like the board, moving through the boards, or if they say they see a creature coming, you just see some dust, you see a tire move. You see sort of the house shake. It's really subtle, but to me, you could track the movement of this pretend monster in a way that just practical effects.
Yeah.
Amanda's not buying it. I'm trying really hard, listeners.
I like innovative solutions, especially if it's something I can apply to my Halloween display in my yard. I could create a tremor.
You probably
all
could.
It is a buoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, just put it under a pile of leaves and pull it as some kids are going by. Oh, that would scare the heck
I bet if you did a setup like what the shopkeeper had, where you had a fake snake graboid thingy, and you said Polaroid's $5, I guarantee parents would know what that is. And they would think it's funny. You're not buying it, but...
No, I'm thinking about it. One thing, we already talked about the Polaroids, but as entrepreneurial as that character, Victor Chang, is being there... There's only 14 people in this town. Like
how much money you getting out of
and
these
you
people?
know Val and Earl are not going to be buying photos because they're mad that they sold it to them. So like that's 2 down.
That's true. Maybe there's just more
you
people
just have
we don't
this
know
smelly
about.
thing in your shop.
Yeah.
Just calling out, not a great investment.
Yeah.
I'm getting into random thoughts here, but as the credits were rolling, they had a sage wrangler and a dirt wrangler as official
wrangler.
roles on this movie.
But that's kind of cool because the subtle movement of those things like indicated where the creatures were underground.
Yeah. I've never seen anyone credited as a sage wrangler or dirt wrangler before. Like, are you an IATSE for that? Like, you're in the union as a dirt wrangler?
I guess. I mean, I guess it's like you're a prop that's kind of a prop.
I'd like to think they went on and did City Slickers after
They might have. And I'd have to do that movie next and check the credits on the
There was a lot of dirt and sage that needed wrangling in that movie.
We need to do that movie at some point.
Not immediately after this, but I have fond memories of that movie. So hopefully that lives up. Who knows? All right, we always like to go through things that suck or are cringy. There's not a lot of like suckage, cringy things as long as you know this is a B movie and you're not expecting.
Yeah, you just have to accept it for what it is. There's nothing that's like, oh my God, it's so dated. There's some things that are dated, but it's really minor. Enjoy the ride, everybody. You could tell I'm failing to convince Amanda of enjoyment of this B movie, but I'm trying, listeners.
It goes back to what I said earlier about when they introduce all these characters who get killed off pretty quickly. That I thought bogged down the movie a little bit. It felt a little slow to me.
Yeah. I did have to, it's not cringy at all, but I did have to explain to my kids, this was before cell phones. This is why they're relying on radios.
They're literally taking horses to go get
Right,
help.
yeah. So I do kind of explain the lack of technology there.
We also like to talk about things that are great. I think you'll have more than I do, but I did call out I like the Jaws camera work and the practical effects.
Oh man, I'm really
my nerdiness.
You're not giving me a lot to work with here, Amanda, in my convincing. But I'd say this is just a fun ride. That's my things that are great is that it's pretty much exactly intact as to how you remember it for those who have watched this growing up. There's not new depth to this movie, but it's also not like an experience that we've had before where we watch an older movie and we're like, oh God, this is terrible, i.e. Ferris Bueller.
Yeah.
But it's exactly as it is.
That's been the biggest disappointment.
It really has been, yeah. But, Raiders, to me, was disappointed. Raiders of the Lost Ark. But this one is exactly as you remember it. And to me, if you accept that B-movie aspect, it's still kind of fun to watch. We talked to Lily before this, and we'll hear from her at the end of this episode. Kids kind of buy into it. They kind of like the B-movie aspect. It's kind of fun for them, too. It doesn't make the movie great. I didn't all of a sudden relate to characters in a different way, but it's still kind of fun. That's my pitch. Right. I'm not succeeding here. I could tell.
I'll admit I'm torn because I was discussing this movie with my writing group over the weekend, and there were some Tremors fans in the crowd there.
Yeah, I like those people.
But was reading that Siskel and Ebert, and we've talked about the way they reviewed movies and disagreed with each other a lot. Sometimes fully ripped apart a movie, which was always my favorite when Ebert went after something, but that's not what he did here. Ebert saw this as like a guilty pleasure. Like,
that's a good way to put it.
It was one of those, he has like a list of like movies I'm ashamed I like so much. Like Pee-wee's Big Adventure was on there as well. Like he was just like, it's just silliness. Buckle up.
But see, Pee-wee is a good example for me, because I rewatched that and I was like, oh my god, I'm in pain. Like, I felt like it was painful to rewatch.
Whereas I really enjoyed the rewatch. I was like in a joyful place. But you also had like a flu.
Oh yeah, I was sick at the time. I think maybe I should give it another go. But this one, I feel that way too. Like, this is a guilty pleasure kind of movie.
But then, so Siskel, who usually was the harsher critic, although not as mean in his reviews when he didn't like something, he initially panned this movie, and then I guess he gave it a rewatch and was like, all right, it actually like grows on you with time.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if I'm in that camp where, since this was my first viewing and it's still kind of okay, I don't dislike this movie, but as you just said, it's not great. Like, I'm very much in the middle on this movie. So I feel like that is my like Gene Siskel style review, where maybe it's like that terrible soda up in Maine, Moxie, where I've been instructed, like, the first 2 sips are going to be the worst thing you've ever tasted, but the third sip, you're like, it grew on me.
It's like kombucha.
Have you ever had Moxie?
No, I haven't. No, this is not a review that is going to get me to drink that. So,
no, you need to take at least 3 sips of it, though,
and then I'll go from hate to love.
Then you come down and have an opinion on it.
Not sold.
Next time I see you, I'll bring some
Moxie. This has happened before for nostalgia watches for one of us and not the other, where it doesn't fare as well. So, yeah, I wonder if you watch this again and I watch Mad Max again, whether we'll have different opinions. I don't know.
Maybe. Like, we might have to do a do-over series at some point.
I know. But... I mean, I think there's still charming elements to me. I still find Kevin Bacon charming. I like the variety of deaths, if you will. That was fun. Like I was saying before, like, it was somewhat predictable to my kids. They were both like, something's going to happen and they're going to have a problem and they're going to have to solve it. And then my son was like, and then someone's going to go like this. And he like did a little like slit for the throat because he was ready for another death. And I think that they even figured out, they're just going to dig a hole for the monsters, are just going to dig a hole for the truck to fall in. And like 5 frames later, that's what happened. And I was like, wow, they're smarter movie watchers than me when I was a kid.
Well, I mean, that speaks to how formulaic some of these movies are.
I know.
So I think your kids have memorized the formula. Although, honestly, if they were living in this small town of perfection and your son figured out that the monsters were attracted to vibrations before these 2 adult idiots did, I would actually believe that. Like, way to go, Isaac. Nailed it.
Yeah, better than Val and Earl.
At some point, I do have our podcast's 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon worked out. So.
Oh, do you really?
I do.
That's so funny. Do
you want to hear it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we can map out the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon to this podcast, and I can do it, I believe, in 2 degrees.
Okay, do it.
So it's a pretty close.
It is.
All right, so Jess and I co-host this podcast. I used to work on this indie film called The Maiden Heist with Marcia Gay Harden was the female lead in that.
She's great.
And Marcia Gay Harden is in Mystic River with Kevin Bacon.
Oh, that's right.
So, we are 2 degrees away from Kevin Bacon here on this podcast. Yeah. And all of our listeners, welcome. You are also 2 degrees away from Kevin Bacon.
Oh, you did it. You did it for all the listeners. Do people even do that anymore? My kids didn't even know who Kevin Bacon was.
We used to do it like on long car rides and stuff when I was with other movie geeks. My go-to back then was always that movie Sleepers that Kevin Bacon was in, because there's so many celebrities in that. Like, that had Brad Pitt in it, it had Robert De Niro in it, just lots of celebrities in that.
All right, so are we ready to rate?
Yes, and I have the spreadsheet.
This time, Amanda gets to be the Order Muppet again. I had to take over last time for Aladdin. It was hard.
This is how nerdy orderly I'm about to be. I am freezing the top line of this.
Excel skills.
We have recorded so many episodes that I want to scroll down and still see what we're...
So if folks aren't familiar, we're going to do a 1 to 10 scale. First one for adults, second one for kids, 1 being garbage, 10 being Princess Bride. That's our scale. And we start with adults. Would you like to go first for your adult score?
Sure. I hinted at my neutrality on this. I'm just going a flat 5. I'm not even putting 0.5s anywhere. This is not good, not bad. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's neutral.
It's neutral.
But for context, I gave Major League a 5.5 for adults, so
really?
I'm only putting it slightly below Major
Wait,
League.
what did I give Major League?
You gave it an 8.
Okay.
This is for adults, by the way.
This is for adults,
not kids.
I'm going to give this a 7.5. So I am typically not a 0.5 person, and I think of late I've been more generous in my ratings. You've been the harsh one now, but I'm giving it a 7.5.
You stole my favorite score.
I know. So
7.5.
I'm not going all the way to an 8. I feel like when you get into the 8, 9, 10 category, you have to find something new to appreciate about this movie. And whereas I enjoyed this movie enough to watch it as an adult and still find it to be a guilty pleasure kind of watch, it wasn't cringy. It was just as I remembered it. It didn't feel like super old to me. So yeah, 7.5 for me. Okay, so now we're ready for our kid rating. So we'll do the same scale, except does it live up for kids today? And so, listeners, we recorded an interview with Lily, my daughter who's 12, right before we started recording this episode. So we got a sense, at least for one kid, what she thought of this movie. And god damn it, I did not ask her what she would rate it. And that is a miss in my pre-production mind.
She does not like cursing, we have learned. So clean that mouth out, lady.
Mouth out. Yeah, exactly.
Get the bar of soap.
I know. She listens to these episodes.
Filthy language.
And she's like, you curse too much.
Well, actually, clarifying question.
Yeah.
So this movie is PG-13.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think that we need to define the age range of kids who would be appropriate to see this? Because I wouldn't, you wouldn't have a toddler watching this.
No, you wouldn't.
Freak them out.
If you're a parent of a kid who's just in cartoon only at this point, then probably not because of the cursing. It actually is really too bad. They should offer dubbed versions of this because I think it's not that scary. So my son's 7. I think you could show it kids that young and even younger, except there's going to be some F-bombs and shits and there's going to be curses, and it's more about, to me, it's like you don't want them repeating it on the playground.
It's not what your kids know, it's what the other parents think of your parenting.
I mean, that's what I think. Although you heard my daughter really didn't like cursing in it because in her head she's like, that's not allowed.
No.
Except when you use it correctly, so it's okay.
I like that she thinks there's correct usages.
So we've talked about that at home, that, if you stub your toe and you're like, oh shit, that's a correct use. Or if shit's really going down and you're like, fuck, that is also a correct use.
She did say if something reached out of the earth and grabbed and bit you in half, that you could yell an F-bomb at that point. You could. And I agree, that is a good usage. People are getting eaten. There can be F-bombs.
Yeah, so I think you can show this to younger kids. I think it's all right.
Okay, so let's take Isaac's age. 7 and up.
I'd say 7 and up is fine.
All right. Well, your kids seem to enjoy this movie, so maybe a 6.5?
Okay, I am also going to go a 6.5. I think it's really good.
Okay.
I'm tempted to go a little bit higher. I am going to go higher. I'm going to go 7. They seem to enjoy it. It was possibly even too predictable for them, but they liked it. I wouldn't say that this is something like Home Alone that they loved, or even Hook that they loved. So it's 7 for me. So wait, what's our total now?
We're at 26, which is right on our line.
Right on our line. So our line, so the final question is, regardless of the score, does Tremors live up? It's a yay or nay from both of us. We both have to agree. And so, yeah, a 26 is right in the middle. There are some that do at that point. There are some that don't. I'm going to say it lives up because to me, it's exactly as I remembered it. It's okay with me that there's no further depth. So it's a yes from me, and I'm going to close my eyes as Amanda tells me what she thinks.
She's reading my facial expressions. I think you know which way I'm going. It's a little meh to me. Mm-hmm. I don't hate it. I just don't love it. So it's not a hell yes for me. And if it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
Yeah, I mean, that is our bar.
Yeah, sorry.
I wish that you had seen more of this as a kid because I encourage you to rewatch this. All right, so this means that Tremors officially does not live up from the Live Up podcast.
Sorry, everyone.
Yeah.
Hate mail to me this time.
Yep, hate mail goes to Amanda, who's actually not on the socials, but we are. So at Live Up Pod on all the socials, reach out to us, let us know what we got right, what Amanda got wrong, and we'll go from there. And stay tuned for a quick little interview with Lily and what her take is on this movie. All right. Well, we have a special guest today. Lily is here with us, and she's going to tell us what she thinks of the movie we just watched, which is Tremors. Do you want to say your piece, and then we could have some questions for you?
Yeah, I'm just going to say I thought the movie was it was really funny, but language, people, language.
I have a fun trivia fact for you. That was the version that they cut down the swearing. What you watched.
Oh, really?
Originally, there were so many swears that it was rated R. And that they went back over and dubbed a bunch of the lines. So you see mother, father, or there's a lot of swears in this movie, but there's also a lot of almost a swear, but not a swear because they had to get rid of the swears to make it PG-13.
Why does cursing bother you so much in movies?
Because for the majority of the time, it's not an appropriate circumstance. In this movie, when things are killing people, okay, say whatever you want. But in other times of the movie, it doesn't seem appropriate to me because swear words I have been taught aren't the best to use.
Except if you use them correctly.
Yes, but the thing is, I've learned that only to use them in the correct circumstances since the past year. Since 5th grade, I didn't know when to use them, so I thought of them as kind of forbidden words. Less, don't use them at all.
Okay, but did you enjoy the movie aside from the cursing?
Yes, I couldn't really take my eyes away from the screen, so yeah.
Mm-hmm. And would you watch this movie again?
Yes, I think I would. Even though there is a lot of cursing, I would still watch the movie again. It's just a really good movie.
Take note of that, Tree.
Okay, reviewed. I was thinking about how my high school teacher used to say cursing is the attempt of a weak mind to express itself. And she would always say, there's a better way to say that.
Oh, okay.
Well,
so I think you're onto something, Lily.
Normally there is a better way to say it, but in some circumstances, like some of the circumstances in this movie, it's fine.
But you and Isaac figured it out, right? You figured out how they were getting people.
Well,
you guys kept predicting.
I knew this movie was very, not very predictable, but it was predictable enough. I could tell what's happening in the next few minutes or the next half hour of the movie, if it was the very end, which was they were finally going to make it out, or they're going to kill all the things. Those are the two options that could have happened near the end of the movie. There's literally been no movie that I've watched that is hey, I just watched a movie where all the main characters die and there's not a bittersweet or happy ending.
What about Rogue One?
Well, that's different. Yeah. They still have hope.
That's true, but they all died because they had to.
No, but I'm talking about...
I'm being annoying.
Mama.
What if, because this movie is a little bit funny and keeps trying to do things to surprise the audience, what if instead of the monsters getting everyone, or what if instead of they escape, what if they just all died of thirst on the rock? Because no one comes out drinking water?
Okay, that was kind of fun.
Wouldn't see that coming.
No.
It'd be like the end. Tremors.
That would be kind of boring. Maybe it would be not boring if they went down fighting, though. Because the point is, you don't want to make a movie boring, but you don't want to have so many twists and turns that everybody sees the twist or the turn coming. So it's really a hard difference. Especially the survival stories, you see a ton of connections. The one basic summary. Main character, trials, bittersweet, all die. There are 3 options that could happen to make the movie interesting enough to get people to watch it.
Pretty much. Well, thanks for coming on our podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
Those gun people were weird.
Yeah, the gun people were weird. Mm-hmm. The preppers.
Yes, they were. We didn't call them preppers back in 1990, but yeah, preppers.
They were definitely preppers. Yeah, they were kind of weird. All right. Well, thanks for coming on our podcast.
All right. Bye.
Okay.
Thanks, Lily.
Do you want to say goodbye?
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining the podcast.
Yeah. And she exits through the door.